I am Patrick Bowen, president of Bowen National Research. We are a Columbus, Ohio-based firm, but we do work all over the United States. We've done a lot of work here in West Virginia in the last year, well, really in the last decade, but a lot in the last year and a half. So we were asked originally, it's been last summer, to do a region-wide housing needs assessment for Advantage Valley, who oversees economic activity and development and promotes that kind of stuff for a 10-county region. So Cabell County was part of that 10-county study. And by the way, you can get on Advantage Valley's website and see that study if you're curious about some other counties and what's happening there. But what we were asked to do was then look at Huntington specifically and some specific things. I'll show you what we looked at, as well as the county as a whole, and compare the two. So you'll see a lot of that here today. What did we look at? So a lot of different demographics, economic information. It's a housing needs assessment, so obviously we looked at housing, your rental and for sale housing stock. We looked at specifically here, so this is not part of the Advantage Valley study, but here in Huntington, and so it's not Cabell County. We looked at development opportunities, meaning potential sites that are here. And then we also looked at residential blight. When you guys have made great efforts to mitigate a lot of the blight issues you have, but there's still work to be done. We did housing gap estimates, both for rental and for sale housing. We got a lot of community input from stakeholders, employers, residents, and even commuters, people coming into the area. And then we even had a Build West Virginia Act stakeholder survey. Congratulations, y'all got the Build West Virginia Act designation. I think it was this week it was announced, so congratulations to y'all. That's one more tool. It's not the only thing that's going to solve your housing issues, but it will certainly help with various tax incentives that are involved with that. And this study was actually used to apply for that Build West Virginia Act designation. So you're already getting some benefit from this housing study. And then we have some recommendations. All right, so various geographies you're going to see in this presentation. A lot is the primary study area, or PSA. That's Huntington. So you're going to see a lot of information on Huntington here today. Depending on what I show you, I'm at times going to show you how Huntington compares to the rest of Cabell County, so the balance of the county, or I call it SSA. You might see that in here. At times, I'm going to show you some information of the county as a whole. So you just want to see, regardless of it's Huntington or outside the city limits, you'll see county numbers. And then for the residential blight piece, we actually broke that down into the city council districts. And so that's the only time that we get that small geography. But we wanted to illustrate where the blight was concentrated. All right, so while we have a lot of population information in the study itself, and that's important to understand who lives in poverty, education, attainment, population by age, all kind of things with population. A lot of the stuff that I focus in on is households, because households drive housing demand, housing needs. So these are demographic numbers. We'll just focus on the graph. It's probably the easiest thing here at the top graph. This is showing you from 2010 all the way up projected to 2028. Put this down for a second. You were expected to decline, so you've been declining. You're expected to decline. Now, I'll show you in a minute, though, you've got a lot of job growth coming. And with that job growth, you're going to have household growth. So this is without that that job growth numbers built into this. So this is where you've been heading, declining. That's not unusual for, I think, virtually every county across the state, and particularly in this region. And this is households by age groups. Huntington on top, Cabell County as a whole at the bottom. And for those in the back, I know you're way back there, so I'll just talk you through this. This is 3 different points in time: households at 2010, 2023, and 2028. And then the bottom row up there and here, this is again the Cabell County, and Huntington at the top. Where is the growth expected over the next 5 years? It's in that 35 to 44 age group, to a lesser degree that 45 to 54 age group, and a lot of growth in that age 75 and older. That's not necessarily meaning a lot of seniors are coming here. You've got a lot of seniors over the next 5 years that are aging in place, but that still is going to affect your housing needs. As these people get older, they can't maintain their homes physically, financially, or whatever the reason is. Ideally, they would need to downsize. Where are they going to downsize to? You'll see here in a little bit, you don't have very much housing stock available, not just for seniors, but even the families, the younger folks, the millennials, older millennials that should be getting married and having babies. Those folks, where are they going to live? You don't have housing for them to choose from. Now, I will tell you this, and Cabell County's numbers are the same, or very similar in terms of growth of those age groups. These are trends here. I could almost match these up with most markets around the country. So nothing is different here than's happening around the country. You've got two waves. You've got the older millennials, or millennials in general. That's a big wave of growth across the country, and then older folks. And really, it's a lot of markets is 65 and older. Here, it's much older. It's 75 and older is where all your growth is. So these growth trends are going to affect what kind of housing you're going to need. All right, so this is renter households by income. Again, those three different points in time. Huntington on top, Cabell County at the bottom. Most of your renters earn less than $40,000 a year. Probably no surprise. Where's the growth expected? Mostly those that make over $40,000 a year up through 2028. One of the things I often say to folks when I have these kind of numbers is, even though you do not expect to have growth on those lower income households, that does not mean you should not address affordable housing. I'll show you here in a few minutes the housing conditions that a lot of these lower income households are living in. They should not be in these. A lot of folks are spending an excessive amount of their income towards housing costs. That needs to be addressed. The wait list to get into affordable housing, whether it's government subsidized housing or low-income tax credit, the wait lists are large. So again, decline in low-income households, you still need more affordable housing. But you also need higher end rentals as well. So that's what this data is telling you. And this is the same thing now, but just for owner households. Where's all the growth? Those that make $60,000 or more. And so as you think about what type of for-sale housing that's needed, you do need for-sale housing for first-time home buyers, lower-income households. But you definitely need, with all this growth expected of those that make over $60,000. If you make $60,000 as a household, you can afford generally a home that's priced about $200,000 and higher. So Huntington, Cabell County is going to need to have a lot of that product built that's over $200,000. But you still have a lot of lower income households that want to be first-time home buyers. But you'll see here in a little bit, there is not much housing for them to choose from. All right, so one of the things I wanted to show you was, where do people move to and from? So the map on the left there, shading in the darker shades show the greater share of people that are, or greater number of people that are coming into Cabell County in the Huntington area. The table here, though, shows you the counties by, again, this is gross migration, meaning either they're coming in or they're going out. So the first thing I wanted to show you was, it's Wayne County, Putnam, and Kanawha County, and to a lesser degree, Lawrence County. That's where most of the activity of people either moving here or moving out. I will tell you this, I don't have a slide for it, but those top three counties, Wayne, Putnam, and Kanawha, that's actually where you're getting most of the people. When they do move here, that's where they come from. So, and it's not unusual. It's just regional, so most people typically move, although the Columbus, Ohio area up on the top left there, Franklin County, where I'm from, a lot of people are moving to or from Franklin County down to here, or vice versa. All right, so who moves here? So I circled or boxed in red there the first set of numbers, 20. Again, folks in the back, if you can see this, you've got the best eyes ever. You're a superhero. But you have 2,900 people that move here on an annual basis that make less than $25,000, move here from another West Virginia county. So that's about, 61% of the people that move from some West Virginia county here make less than $25,000. Those that come from other states, another 1,500, again, make less than $25,000. So what was one of the things I showed you? Again, you've got people, the low-income households that are overall declining, but you still got a lot of low-income people that are coming here. And so they're affecting what kind of housing you need. That doesn't mean you have other folks that aren't moving here that have higher incomes, and you will. Once all these jobs materialize in this region, a lot of these wages, the individual wages, are over $50,000 a year for a lot of these new jobs coming to the area. So you'll see a shift. This is not factored in. The jobs are not factored into this. I'll show you that in a second. This one might surprise folks. These are who commutes in here. You have about 25,000 people that commute into this city every day for work. That makes up, probably would surprise you, 3/4 of your workers that are here don't live here. Now that's a challenge, and that's a great opportunity. Now, one of the research that we have done, roughly about 40% of the people that commute into a community tell us when we survey them Would you live there if housing was available and affordable? So 40% say, yeah, I would. So generally, you can expect 40% of these commuters would live here if you had the housing. But like I said, I'm going to show you here in a minute, you don't have housing for them to choose from. The other thing is, and it's a big difference now, look at the bottom, commuter profile. Who are these people that commute in? Over half of them are between the ages of 30 and 54. Over half make over $40,000 a year. So it's a different story when I showed you that who's migrating, who's moving here. It's generally low-income people. Who comes in here to work, but then they leave? It's people that make over $40,000 a year. So it's a missed opportunity in this community because you're not grabbing these folks. But again, the lack of housing, whether it was the low-income people or the moderate to higher income people, there is no housing for them to choose from. But it's definitely an opportunity to grab some of these folks. Okay, so this is showing you where these people are commuting in from. Now, most of the workers is Huntington numbers, by the way. So most of the people, was that 40%? 40% are here in Cabell County already, but other places where these commuters are coming from are Lawrence, Wayne, and Kanawha County. One of the big takeaways of this, again, most folks can't see this, but at the bottom here, these are commuters that travel over 50 miles a day to get to Huntington to work. You have 3,200 of them. Now, percentage-wise, that's about 10% of the workers. That's a little bit low compared to a lot of communities, but still, 3,200 people travel over 50 miles a day to get here to work. These are the people that would be most likely to move here if you had housing, especially with gas prices and everything going up. And if you're a moderate to low-income household and the financial burden you have of trying to commute in here every day, I suspect a lot of those folks would choose to live here if they had the opportunity, if housing was available. All right, so this is the good stuff now. So this is all 10 counties that were part of the Advantage Valley study, regional study that we did. And so and I won't go through everything we did, but there was a lot of research. Advantage Valley put us into contact with a lot of individual county economic development representatives. We did a lot of online research, a lot of interviews, ultimately trying to identify how many jobs are coming into this region. So we'll look at the bottom first, the grand total for this region, direct jobs first. Those are publicly announced jobs that we are aware of with all this investment. You have over almost 5,400 new jobs coming in. Now those jobs are going to create other jobs, right? And everybody focuses in on, hey, there's a new announcement and we got these great jobs coming in, really well-paying jobs. What people often ignore is you're going to have, if I'm a worker and I'm coming into this region, I don't live here, and I'm going to come here and take one of these jobs wherever I move, well, guess what? I got to go grocery shopping. I got to get my oil changed on my car and get my hair cut, whatever it might be. You're going to have other jobs created from these 5,400 roughly jobs coming, direct jobs. And so we have estimates of another 17,000 for the region. And the grand total of 22,000, almost 23,000 jobs for the region over the next 5 years. How about Cabell County? 784 direct jobs, 2,000 more indirect jobs, almost 2,800 grand total. Now, one of the things that's going to affect these jobs, where they're going to go, or where the workers ultimately are going to go or live, is where the housing is. So, great opportunity for the region. As the mayor said, with all this growth in terms of jobs, it's going to have an impact on housing. As a community, and you're going to see in a moment, the lack of available housing is discouraging. But I'd rather have this problem than a lot of communities that we do study. You do not have this kind of job growth. And so they're facing multiple challenges of just trying to get businesses to locate. And they have housing shortages. I would rather deal with strong job growth and figuring out how we're going to house these people versus the contrary to that. All right, so this is region-wide household changes from 2010 up through 2028. And the red line is showing you where you have been and where you were heading. So in 2023, you had 203 households in this region. It was expected to continue to drop. However, with the job growth, that has reversed the household growth numbers. So we're projecting that you're going to have about 213,000, almost back to where you were as a region in 2010. So regionally, this is transformational, folks. This job growth is generational, it's unprecedented, and it's an incredible positive impact on this region, and it's going to turn this region around. And so we looked at every county and what it means. So we first looked at renter household growth. Now again, this is just from the new jobs being created. So overall, you're expected to add about 4,400 new households. As the mayor, obviously he must have seen the study. He correctly cited you have about 533 new renter households that will be added just from the new job growth. And it's broken out by those different income levels. Most of that job growth is going to create households that make between $50,000 and $75,000, but you also have some higher income households as well as some of the lower ones. So this is going to drive the demand for different affordability levels really across the whole affordability spectrum. And then we did the same thing for owner households. Region-wide, about 8,500 new households. Think of that for a second. 10 counties are about to absorb 85 new households. There's not 8,500 housing units available for people to move into. So we'll take a look at the county. For Cabell County, 1,025 new owner households expected in the next 5 years. So you're talking about 200 housing units, for sale housing units that are needed every year. You don't have 200 housing units right now. So you can see the dilemma that you face, but again, opportunity for developers. If I was somebody trying to promote why would I want to build and invest in Huntington, Cabell County, these would be the kind of numbers I would point to. And I would point to, as you're about, and I keep saying this to kind of build up the anticipation for the supply section, but when they see that there's really not much available, and yet we've got all this opportunity coming, I would want to explore Cabell County. I want to look at Huntington, West Virginia to build my next project. All right, so we finally get to it, the housing supply. This is the first part that we did. This is the multifamily apartment inventory that we surveyed. This is where my staff actually contacts property managers by phone and or go in and visit the properties. Ultimately, we physically visited every property, photographed them, rated them. By the way, I don't have it in this presentation, but another thing that you could leverage out of this study is we have so much data that we've collected on apartments, for example, that if I was a developer and I was curious, and I know there's developers in this room today, if I was curious about Huntington and I wanted to know what some of the other rental properties were, what were they charging in rents, what kind of features do they have, what's the square footage of the units, what's the amenity package, guess what? We got it all. We have all that information, so you are armed as a community to inform developers and investors on multifamily housing as an example. All right, so we surveyed 22 properties in the city limits, another 17 in the balance of the county. So the takeaway here is your overall occupancy rate, 97.3 in the city. Is that good? Is that bad? Is it high? Is it low? Normally in a healthy market, you want it to be about 94 to 96%. You want vacancies. If you're a property owner, you don't want vacancies, right? You want it to be full. You want to make your money. But this is a housing needs assessment. So this is talking about the needs of the community, the health of the community. This is not good news. It's good news for investment if you want to attract developers in here. But in terms of your community, to have a 97.3% occupancy rate, you want vacancies because people get married, right? And they're going to need a place to rent. They're going to have kids. Their jobs are going to change. Their incomes are going to climb. I used to live in this, but now I can live in something more expensive or whatever. So many reasons you want. How about all the workers that are coming, right? You're going to need rentals for them. So you want vacancies at 97.3% occupancy. That's too high. You need additional units. And so we accounted for that when we come up with our housing needs estimates. Check out the balance of the county. So basically anything that's outside of Huntington but still in the county, nearly 99%. That's a problem. But again, a great opportunity. All those vacancies are in the market rate inventory, and even those vacancies that we found are in properties that have some specific issue. So if you took them out, this is more dire than what I'm showing you. But nonetheless, you do have some vacancies. Anything that's classified as affordable, government subsidized, or low-income tax credit, they're all full. And I'll show you, I think it's right here, yep, the wait list. So we got wait lists at every property. So if you want to see per property, you'd see that in here, but here we put it together. Excuse me. So regardless of the type, and market rate is basically typically higher rentals, but it doesn't have to be. There's no restrictions on it, basically. Tax credit housing is under the low-income tax credit program. So for this area, I'm just guessing, I actually might have the number here in a second, but it's roughly 30 to 50,000, maybe a little bit lower, 25 to 40,000 in terms of household income. And then government subsidized, generally be anything under probably $30,000 for this area. Wait list for everything, but definitely wait list for the affordable housing product, both in the city, but also in the balance of county. Look at the wait list for government subsidized housing. We have a range in here, 1,900 people waiting to get in a government subsidized unit. That's up to 12 months wait. I suspect that's even longer, to be honest. So long wait to get into these units. And so you can see how, as I showed you before, even though you have a decline in the lower income households, renter households, you got people waiting, desperately waiting for this housing. You'll see in a moment, people are living in stuff they shouldn't be living in, but they have to. Why? Because they can't find anything else, city and county-wide. All right, so this is the market rate inventory. I won't go too much in it. Ton of data that we have in here. As I mentioned, all the vacancies in the market are the market rate inventory, 28 in the city, 18 in the rest of the county. I noted up here in that box, I circled those or boxed those two, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, have 11 and 12 vacant units respectively. Most of those vacant units are in a couple properties, I think it's 2 properties, older properties, change of management, small units, like they have an issue specifically with the property itself. So it's not reflective of lack of market need. There is a need because virtually everything else we surveyed was close to 100% occupied, well over 95%. And then I just highlighted rents that whether it's in the city versus the balance of the county, rents are pretty comparable to each other for the most part. Ignore some of these at the bottom. These are definitely higher, 1,500, 1,600 for the larger units, 3 bedroom relative to what's in the city. But we don't have very many units that are at these bigger size units, so it's not a good comparison to do. But nonetheless, generally comparable rents for the city versus the balance of the county. So this is mentioned tax credit housing, so I did put it up there. So generally, this serves households up to $42,000 a year. Low-income tax credit program, a great program. All 45 multifamily apartments that we surveyed that operate under this program in the city are occupied. Same thing for the 88 that are in the rest of the county. Rents are very similar, but look how much lower these are. 500 to 550 in the city. What I got here, 584 to 813 in the balance of the county. These are low rents, but that's because the way the program is set up, these are much lower than what is available for market rate rentals. So it's more affordable, but that's why you have that wait list for this product. That's why this is 100% occupied, a very affordable product that serves the needs of lower income households. This is government subsidized. I know that's small print. The point is everything is full for these government subsidized units. They generally serve households up to $35,000 for a family of 4. All of them are occupied. You even have housing choice vouchers. So you get, those are issued by the local housing authority. So you get this voucher. You can use that to help subsidize your rent if you can find a property that will accept them. And that's one of the problems we're having around the country right now. Now your market here, I think I had it. Yeah, only you have 49 out of those 1,300 vouchers. 49 of those are not being used. That's about what, almost 4% of the vouchers. There are some markets that I'm studying right now where 30 to 40% of those vouchers aren't getting used. That's not good. And if you just think of it from this simple fact, when you get a voucher, Patrick Bowen got a voucher, one, you often have to wait a long time to get one, right? A year, 2 years. All right, so I got one. I got the government, federal government's going to help. It's not state government, it's not local governments. Federal government's going to subsidize my rent. All right, I'm going to go find a place that takes this and house my family. Folks have a challenge finding anybody to take these. You saw there's no vacant apartments. And there's, you can use it at a house that rents or a duplex or something like that. But a lot of landlords won't take them, and there's a variety of reasons they won't do it. So at 4% of these not being used, you're better than most markets we study around the country, but tell that to the 49 households that can't use these vouchers. right? And that's not good for the community in the sense of that's federal money that comes in here. Federal government's going to pay that. So it's not coming out of your taxes on a federal level, but you're not paying any local taxes on that. So it's federal money that the government's going to kick in to help subsidize rent. You're missing out on 49 renters every month. That money could be coming into this county, and it's not. I talked about the wait list, almost 1,000 people waiting to get one of these vouchers. So again, pent-up demand. You're starting to see a theme for affordable housing. I don't normally put this in a presentation, but I wanted to do this. These are projects within the county that operate under some kind of HUD contract. And I put in red anything in this column is the expiring date for these projects. So you operate, when you get you're operating a government subsidized project, but you're a private property owner. You're under contract with the government. And anything that's marked in red, I think we have it expiring in the next 5 years. The only reason I put this in this particular presentation, I don't think I've ever seen one that I've got this many contracts expiring in the near future. Now the chances are, because I've been asked this before, chances are, hopefully, that these contracts get renewed. It's really rare that they don't. But the point is, this is important to watch this. Because if they don't get, these are subject to annual appropriations from the federal government. So the government could, theoretically, we're not going to fund this one next year. It's possible. So the point is, you've got a lot of low-income housing that serves the lowest income, the most vulnerable people of your community, and their contracts at these properties are about to expire, or at least in the next 5 years. It'd be something I would definitely keep an eye on, because these are serving the disabled, a lot of these, seniors, and then even the lowest income families. All right, so you have also what we call non-conventional rentals. So we have the apartments. So anything else, whether it's a house, a duplex, a unit over a storefront, a mobile home, anything else, that is a non-conventional rental. That makes up 5,500 units, almost 59% of your rental product. So it's the bulk of your rental supply. So my staff is really good at what they do. They spend a lot of time trying to find any of these rentals for months. And they found 19 of them here in the city, 24 in the county as a total. If I take those 19 available units and compare it to all the rental product that you have that's considered non-conventional, you come back with a vacancy rate of 0.3 or an occupancy rate of 99.7. What did I say earlier, right? You want it closer to 96%. Property owners don't. They want it 100%. So this is great news again for property owners. This is not good news for your residents. I can't find an apartment. I'm low income. I'm moderate income. I'm high income. It doesn't matter. I can't find, there's not much for me to choose from. Okay, let me go find a house or a duplex or whatever. There's not much to choose from. And these lead to other problems I'll show you here in a moment. Most of these rentals, at least based on those that are occupied, or the rents are under $1,000. What we found, though, of those 19 that are available, a lot of those are well over $1,000. So maybe you're lucky enough to get one of these, to find one of these. And it's like, this fits my family's needs. It's in the location that I want. It's got the bedroom types that I want. Whatever it is, it fits. I want this rental. A lot of your residents can't afford these rentals. So you see that continuing challenge of availability and some affordability issues. All right, this is your for sale market. This is Huntington's numbers. These are annual sales, so the blue bar represents how many homes were sold every year. The green line is showing you median sales price of what's been sold. So you can see in 2022 and 2023, the amount of homes that were selling on these annual basis dropped. We're seeing it all around the country, right? Particularly actually in the last 2 years for sure. Interest rates are the big one, right? That's bringing that down. And then even somebody that wants to sell their home, they're like, hey, I have a lot of equity, right? The prices are climbing and climbing all over the country, as well as here. And so it's like, hey, I got some equity in my home. I think I want to sell it. Well, where are you going to go? You don't have any housing to go to, and you'll see it in a second, and you're going to be locking into a higher interest rate now when you were maybe lucky to get a 2.5% or 3% interest rate earlier. So, but regardless of the slowdown in terms of volume, your home prices keep climbing. Why? Because there's nothing available, as you're going to see. And so there's such a demand for housing. My brother just sold his house in Pittsburgh area this past week. He had I don't know how many showings, 30-something showings. He was so worried, like nobody's going to buy a house right now. Interest rates are high. And I think over a 3-day period, like 34 showings, and he sold it for $25,000 more than he was asking, right? Interest rates are high. It's not stopping the level of interest of people wanting to buy, and it continues to drive up prices. And then what I have here is history of home sales. Huntington on the left, the balance of the county on the right. This is by price point. Again, this is anything sold from beginning of January 2020 up through the end of October of 23. Most of the stuff that's been selling in the city is less than $200,000. A little bit more balanced in the balance of the county. A decent amount of products sold between that $200,000 and $300,000 range. Homes are selling moderately quick, close to 100 days here for the city, 90 days for the rest of the county. And you can see in the bar graph, the dark blue is the city numbers relative to those price points. The royal blue is showing you the balance of county numbers. So a lot of lower price product to moderate price product being sold. I will tell you this, and it does get factored in our housing gap estimates, and I showed you all that job growth earlier and what that means for household growth. So even though you haven't had a lot of homes sold over $300,000 in the city, a little bit more in the rest of the county, I promise you, with all this job growth and some really good, healthy wages, we're going to start to see these numbers climb for these higher priced homes in terms of volume of sales. All right, this is what's available by different price points. So you have 112 homes that are available in Huntington, 63 in the rest of the county. Most of the homes that are available under $200,000. I don't think I put it in here, but I think I have it in the study. A lot of those homes are well over 50, 60 years old. So yes, could you buy a home under $200,000? Yes, you can here in Huntington, but that comes with the caveat that there's a good chance that there's weatherization issues, there's just maintenance issues that I can afford to buy the home, but I can't get it up to modern day standards or fix some of the housing challenges that exist. More balanced, again, not as much inventory available in the rest of the county, which is bad for the rest of the county, but obviously good for development opportunities. But those are balanced among these different price points. The other thing I wanted to point out, though, is what we call availability rate, meaning it's like a vacancy rate for rentals. It's taking the available homes that are available to purchase and comparing it to all owner-occupied housing. Your availability rate is 1.1% in the city, less than 0.5% for the rest of the county. Where should that be? For a healthy market, you want that close to 2 or 3%, so you're about half of where you should be in the city, and you're about a quarter of what you should be in the rest of the county. So again, it didn't matter if it was rentals, right? The apartments or the non-conventional rentals, but even for sale housing, you got the same challenge. So when you have housing shortage and people are struggling in many ways to find housing, to afford housing, you get people living in what's called substandard housing. And I won't go through the different types and what that is, but in the end, in the city, you have about 466 households living in substandard housing, whether it's overcrowded or lacking complete plumbing facilities, or countywide, it's 557. So most of their substandard housing is in the city limits. So these are people living in units they probably shouldn't be in. All right, how about affordability? So I have it here at the bottom, housing, these are federal definitions. So housing cost burden households, that's people that pay over 30% of their income towards their housing cost. And severe housing cost burden households, people that pay over 50% of their income towards their housing costs. Wrap your head around that for a second. You're paying more than half of your income for just housing? What does that leave you for transportation? Essentials, right? I got to get to work. I got to get to take my kid to the doctor or whatever it is. Healthcare related issues. How about getting to the grocery store and getting good food? Those kind of things. There's tons of things. Clothing. I mean, just again, essentials. You're paying over half. You got a problem. Why are they paying this much? Nobody in this room wants to pay that. Why? Why are they doing this? Because they have no choice. You don't have available housing. And when you have limited availability, and I am not critiquing property owners. This is their right, and you have investment property, you should get the most that you can. But when you don't have much available, I'm going to charge more in rent. I have a house that I've rented all the time. I'm making this up. It's not, I'm renting this for $1,200 a month. God, there's nothing available. I know I can get more out of this. I'm going to charge $1,400. I'm not being a bad person. I just know I can make more, and I got to take care of my family. And so lack of available housing starts to add to these challenges, and it'll push the prices up. In the end, you've got, 7,300 households in the city that are housing cost burden. 56, most of them are renters, 5,600, almost 5,700. Another 1,600 owner households. The severe cost burden, again, those paying over half, 3,500 renters, almost 650-ish owner households that are severe cost burdens. You got a lot of people that are paying a lot towards their housing. And for a moment, the fact that you're here indicates you likely care about housing. But let's say you don't. It's like, I don't care about housing. I'm housed, and that's it. And if my son or daughter can find a house or whatever, that'll be great. And that's all I care about. But if you care about the economy, then you should care about housing. Because when these people pay over half of their income towards their housing costs, folks, they don't got much left to spend on retailers or going to the restaurant or buying those extra things that they don't necessarily have to have, but they'd like to have, that adds to your economic growth and opportunities. And so this is an economic issue when people are spending this much money towards housing. All right, so this is probably one of the more profound things that we've started putting in our studies in the last few years to demonstrate what does this mean to your workforce. So there's two slides I have, and I had to cut this table in half just so it's somewhat legible. Again, the folks in the back might not be able to read this, but these are your top 35 occupations for this area. It's not in order. These were different industry sectors, then they're listed by the type of jobs. But these are the most common occupations that you have here. So this is the bulk of your workforce. So we did two things. We did, over this, we have lower quartile wages, meaning the bottom fourth. So these would be like entry-level wages. Then we have median, the midpoint. And then we put in here what they can afford in terms of rent at the lower quartile level. So this, if you have a job, and I'll just take one of these for example, the top one, retail salesperson at the lower quartile level, they make about $22,000. At median, it's about $26,000 a year. Excuse me. These are, again, per person wages, not a household. And so they can afford what kind of rent at the lower quartile level? $553. At the median, $653. What if they want to buy? $73,000. At the median, $87,000. Anything you see in red, you don't have that product here. There's a lot of red here, right? Do the next one. Same thing. This is just the continuation of that same table. Many of your comment, there's teachers in here. I mean, you probably know a lot of these people. Some might be in this room right now. Their wages, what can they afford? A little bit better for some of these occupations, but nonetheless, there's still a lot of red on here. So it's telling you that as an individual worker, for the bulk of your workforce, you cannot afford the housing that you have. Now, if you have another wage earner in the house, okay, then maybe it's more likely. But what that is telling you is you better have another wage earner in a house, or you better have a second job. And so you can see the financial challenge for the bulk of your workforce. Again, if you didn't care about housing for a moment, but you did care about the economy, this is telling you, look, you better find a way to house these people, because in time, they're not going to be able to sustain this. They're going to become those severe cost burden households that I was talking about. And then they're going to have a challenge, and a lot of those, at times, not always, a lot of those folks become homeless, or they make other decisions, right? Well, you know what, I'm going to move in with my parents because I can't afford this anymore. So now that house can become overcrowded, and that becomes that substandard housing. So you can see the domino of the challenge of some of these issues that we face in terms of housing and housing affordability for the workforce. Another thing that we were asked to look at was development opportunities. I just put the one slide in here. We found in the end about 90 properties that represent potential sites. There's a lot of things we did not look at, like engineering. We didn't look at if it's in a floodplain or things like that. So these were anything that was marketed or advertised as potential sites for residential development. 90 overall, 73 of these were in vacant parcels. Um, 3 of these were larger ones of over 10 acres, and then 17 of these had some kind of building or structure on it. So whether a developer would come in and take that building and just demolish it and start over, or take those and convert them into housing, you do have a lot of potential sites. You have a lot of sites here. Excuse me. So this is a good opportunity. We've logged all these. We have all the addresses. We have information on these properties, the acreage, whether it's a building or not, the size of the buildings, all kind of stuff. I think we even have zoning in there as well. So a lot of good information that, again, could be leveraged from this study to show developers, hey, we've got sites here, come visit Huntington and see what opportunities exist. I do have one other slide. This is a slide on what kind of zoning those 90 sites consist of. Most of those are zoned as R1 or R2, which would be lower density single family. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because if you're trying to solve a big housing issue, a big housing shortage, well, you can chip away at single family home development, but really one of the ways to do it is higher density multifamily housing, because instead of doing a couple houses, you could do 20, 40, 60 apartments. So you could really address the housing needs faster on a greater scale, but you don't have a lot of these properties that are zoned in higher density areas. So you can see where the current zoning and where these sites are pose a potential challenge. All right, another thing we were asked to do, again, just here in Huntington, this was not part of the Advantage Valley study, we were asked to look at residential blight. So that's basically any property that has exhibits exterior evidence of disrepair, damage, things like that. So these are homes that are really have some kind of exterior problem that's evident to the observer. Out of those 313 units that we found, and that's where my staff actually drove every street. So the city's got a pretty good inventory of different types of structures in the city. But what they asked us to do is, no, go get it. Go find us every one of these structures that we understand what this housing looks like, the degree of the blight, and so I'll show you what that is in a second. But I take these 313 units and I compare them with the entire housing stock that you have. That makes up 1.3% of your housing stock. That is probably only, out of the last 100 studies I've done in the last 5 years, this is probably, it's not the highest, but it's probably one of 3 that went over 0.5%. So on a scale relative to other communities, some similar to you, some not, but you have a high share of blight. Now with that said, the city has done a phenomenal job of addressing blight. You have a lot of programs in place, a lot of initiatives to address blighted homes, but you got a lot of work to do. And so that's what we found. And by the way, I was talking to a couple communities that I present all the time. I had a couple communities in the last 2 months ask me about blight. Mr. Bowen, we have blight in our community. What should we do? You know what I tell them? Go look at Huntington, West Virginia. I mean, you got a great system in place, and that should be absolutely supported and possibly expanded. But you got a great thing in place to address your blight. So I do want people to look at Huntington as an example. Kathy, you may get phone calls, or other departments might get calls from cities going, why am I getting these calls? It's probably me. Not me calling, but me telling them. All right, so this is blight. We did this, again, I said this in the beginning of the presentation. We did the blight by the council districts 1 through 9. And on the left-hand side is the number of blighted homes. And so this is District 5 that had the most, District 2, District 8, 7. So those are some, and even District 3 to a lesser degree. And then as a proportion to how many housing units are in those districts, it still came back the same. Proportionately, District 5, 2, 8, 7 have a higher share of residential blight. Now remember, I said most markets that we look at as a whole, about 0.5% of the housing units are blighted. Well, look at these districts. Again, can't see the number. I'm going to read them off to you. 3.2. 3.2 of the homes, 3.2% of the homes in District 5, 2.1, 1.3, 1.5 in District 8. So proportionally, these districts have a lot of blight. But I also know that the city has made efforts in a lot of these districts as well, and they've made progress. All right, so one of the things we did is we didn't just want to inventory blight and just say, here's homes that have some issues. We wanted to give some scale to it. That there's some homes that were less blighted, and then more blighted. So we have minor blight, and this is just our estimates. These are approximations. Generally from our observers, our analysts, when they drove these streets, anything that's minor blight is less than $5,000 in mitigation costs, repair costs, things like that. Moderate blight, $5,000 to $20,000 to address the blight. And then severe blight is anything that probably costs more than $20,000 to address, or in some cases it's beyond really repair and just need to be torn down. So based on that, minor blight on the table, moderate blight, severe blight, has it by the districts, and I marked on here again, District 5 and District 2 come back with those that have the greatest number and shares of moderate and severe blight. So not only do those districts have the most blight, they got the worst conditions of such blight relative to the other districts. And then we mapped out severe residential blight by those districts just so you can kind of see where they're congregated. And so, again, most of those I think are south of 8th Avenue. All right, so the city has done phenomenal things. Again, everything on the left is what I just showed you, those 313 blighted units. But then you have a blight monitoring process. You've got an online portal where people can report in blight and other things. I'm going to go through this actually is probably the numbers to get a better understanding of what's happening. So that online portal, you have about 335 active complaints of potential blight. Again, be somebody that's just mad at their neighbor and they report it, right? I just don't like Joe. I'm going to just report him because he didn't cut his grass. But nonetheless, you've got a lot of these that would absolutely constitute residential blight. Unsafe Building Commission, there's 74 buildings on the active list. You've got demolition orders, 69 of the buildings that have current demolition orders. You've got a vacant building registry in the city. I don't know if you're aware of that. You have 234 buildings that are currently registered. Project Shine, addressing home repair efforts. You've had 245 homes that have been addressed for lower income households that otherwise could not afford to repair these homes. And then in your land bank, you've got about 106 properties that ultimately have been pulled together and could be repurposed or sold back to the community or whatever, developers for development opportunities. So a lot of work's been done, a lot of work to do. And then the last few slides here before I get to the housing gap numbers is just getting input from community. So this slide here, I had enough, keep in mind this was part of the Advantage Valley 10-county study. And so I don't remember the total number, maybe we had 175 or something like that. More than 100 for sure. Stakeholders respond. Well, I had enough for Cabell County that I wanted to give you Cabell County's results. I can't do that for some of the other stuff that we're going to show you. We asked stakeholders, again, to be community leaders. I suspect a lot of you in this room were part of this survey. But we asked about what kind of home prices and rental rates, and I showed that on the top left. What kind of products, single-family homes, apartments. A lot of people tell us, by the way, that when they're talking about single-family homes, they're talking about move-in ready. Especially millennials don't want to deal with home repair and things like that. They just want to move into a house and live their lives. But you got a lot of homes that are, some homes that are available here to purchase. I showed you those that are under $200,000. But a lot of those homes would need some work. So that's not really what people are looking for, particularly the younger people. Housing issues that, again, stakeholders are telling us, limited availability. You've seen the data, right? Limited availability. Rent and home purchase affordability, you've seen that issue, severe cost burden households. Outdated housing, we saw substandard housing. So you can see stakeholders are echoing the stuff that we found. And then when we asked them about top priorities in terms of funding or construction, it was new construction, clearing of the blighted structures, renovating existing housing. And we have a ton of other things in the study, so if you want to go read what everybody answered for everything, you'll see those answers. And then this is employers. This is region-wide. We didn't have enough for just Cabell County, so now this is region-wide. But I think this is fair to say this is applicable to Cabell County. I won't go through all of these. In the end, some of the key things that employers were telling us is right here. Having an issue attracting, is housing having an impact on your employers? On employers. And 61% of the employers say, yeah, I'm having trouble attracting workers because of housing. There's other reasons that employers have issues, for sure, attracting workers and retaining workers. But housing is playing a big role of that. Difficulty retaining employees, unable to grow or expand my business, another almost 20%. Here's another big one. Likelihood employer would hire more workers if local housing issues were resolved. Whether it's much more likely or somewhat likely, you're still talking close to 70% of your employers say, I'd hire more if we could address our housing issues. So again, if you think about housing and economics, there's clearly, forget what I've showed you, all the other statistics. Your employers are saying that. We would hire more if we could address our housing issues. This is over 1,000 residents region-wide, so it's not the Cabell County area, but again, this would apply to this area. We asked about product type, more affordable rentals, more affordable for-sale housing issues, product issues that folks are facing or believe are existing in the market, neglected, blighted properties in neighborhoods, high prices of rents, lack of rental vacancies, owners unable to afford upkeep. You've heard all of that, right? So the people are telling us these, yes, in fact, are issues that your area is facing. What kind of product would people prefer? I mentioned it a moment ago, modern move-in ready single-family homes, single floor plan units, particularly for seniors that don't want to go up and down steps, things like that. Low-cost fixer-uppers. And then here's a good one too. I mentioned this before. So we asked people across the region, if you were commuting into a county to work, would you move to that county? And more than 40% said, yes, I would live there if housing was available and affordable to me. But now that you have seen, there isn't anything available or affordable to most folks. And this I'm not really going to cover because I know Megan's going to talk after me about Build West Virginia Act. But in the end, we asked stakeholders, and we got 12 of them, and this was just for the Huntington or Cabell County area, because we knew you all were going to use the study to request from the state this designation to be a Build West Virginia Act area and get all these tax incentives for residential development. But in the end, when we asked these stakeholders, whether they were developers, community activists, or whomever, banking industry, employers, a handful of those, we asked them a series of questions and said, tell us what this would mean to this community. In the end, they're saying, look, if we got this designation, it would greatly help in terms of investment, development, diversifying our economy, diversifying our employment base. And so, well, you got it, folks. You got that designation. So let's hope that a lot of the stuff materializes. But you can see, you're hearing from stakeholders saying, look, this act, this tax incentive will help our community in many, many ways. All right, the finish line here. The housing gap estimates. This is all the rental housing gaps. We did it by these different income levels, less than $50,000, 50 to 75, 75 to 100, $100,000 and higher, and then the corresponding rents that the people would be able to afford. These are the county-wide numbers on the top. So almost 1,900 rental units are needed, and here in the city, almost 1,000. So a little more than half. Yeah, a little more than half of the county's housing gap is right here in the city. You need 1,000 units if you want to solve all of your housing issues. Now that doesn't mean you can, right? There's land issues, there's infrastructure limitations, there's various site issues, there's financial resources that developers have access to. So you're not going to likely do 1,000 units. I hope you do. But that at least gives you the scale of the challenge here in the city. And then by affordability level, you can see the greatest need is for rental housing that is priced under $1,200 or households that earn less than $50,000 a year. So it is the more affordable stuff. There are opportunities though. Look, 270 units here in the city you could do. It's going to stun some people, right? 270 units that are priced at $2,500 or more. And that seems unfathomable, but you have all this higher income household growth that's coming. We factored in that job growth that I talked about earlier in this presentation. So they're going to drive demand for higher end products. So if a developer wanted to come into this community or to the county itself, another 500, total 500 for the county at that price point, you could do it. There's a market need for that product. And then we did the same thing for sale housing. Now we did it here on just 3 income levels. 50,000 to 75, 75 to 100, and 100 and higher. Countywide, look at that number, 3,700 units are needed in the next 5 years, almost 1,800 here in just the city. Daunting numbers, but a great opportunity. These will be the things that developers and investors will look to say, you know, Huntington, Cabell County, this is a place that I think I could do well in. And so that's certainly something I would want to promote from this study. And then we just put a handful of recommendations together, designating a housing champion, someone to lead the local efforts. I know, again, you've done a lot of stuff here. You've got a lot of interested parties, but whether you organize more formally to make a housing task force or something like that, you could also, I put at the end of that first recommendation, even thinking about hiring somebody even temporarily, maybe somebody under contract for a year or two to come in and spearhead your housing efforts, because there's different people here, different organizations that obviously have their heart and want to do something, but there's also time and resources to put towards this and levels of expertise that some folks might not have. So could you bring somebody in? I do know communities that have brought somebody in a short period of time to lead their housing efforts. Setting goals. Kathy, how are we on time? We about up? Am I okay? All right, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Goal setting, you have a lot of those housing gap numbers that I showed you. That starts to help you set priorities. But also as a community, you got to think about what is it you want to be. So whether it's, you saw the senior household growth numbers. Do you focus in on senior housing? Do you encourage it? Do you support it? Do you let the developers decide what they're going to build? How about the working families? Is that what you think the community needs? Employers are saying that that is certainly a challenge for them. So there's a lot of goals to be set. There's a data in this report to kind of give you an idea of what that need could be to help set those goals. A ton of policies and incentives that you could do. I know you have a lot. Kathy was talking about some of the ones that they need to maybe rethink in terms of what those incentives are, or at a minimum, just getting those incentives out to the public so that people understand, hey, we want to help you as a developer, investor in property, real estate development. So come talk to us about these things. So a lot of things you can do. I put more in the study itself of things to think about. Education and outreach, well, we're doing that right now. This is part of it, to start to inform the community. You all knew. Like, I am not telling you anything you don't know, in the sense that you knew you had a housing shortage. You knew that home prices were going up. You knew rents were climbing. But what this study does is start to quantify that a little bit more, to show you the depth of that need, to show you those wait lists, to show you how many people are trying to get a housing choice voucher, all of those things, and then to show where the growth is expected to occur. A lot of resources available to you, not just through the study, but through my company. With that said, take a few minutes for questions.